Welcome, welcome. This is much later in the day than expected because we had a few technical difficulties earlier today. So I'm going to start now, and I want to talk to you about the creative session. So I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully this time it's all going to be very, very easy. And already I can see that it isn't. Honestly, this is driving me loony. Okay, here we go. So let's have a little look at this. And what I want to do is talk about being creative. Okay, so the Being Creative session is one of the 14 sessions that you find in CST program. It's one of my absolute favorites, I have to say. There is a quote, and I wanted to share with you about being creative, and it is, "The desire to create is one of the deepest yearnings of the human soul," and it's absolutely true. Now, it's really interesting when I start to talk about being creative, because some people, it splits us, doesn't it? There are some people who say, "Oh, I love it. Yeah, give me a table full of craft and I'll create something amazing." And then there are people who are absolutely terrified by the whole idea of being creative, and will tell you, "Oh, I'm not creative at all." So you will probably be in one or the other camps. And if you're watching this live or recorded, you can stick that in the comments and say, you know, are you a creative? Put creative or not creative, and one or the other you will identify with. And of course, I'm sure that those of you that say that you're not creative have had many conversations with friends, relatives, people, colleagues who tell you, yes, you are, everybody's creative. It's not possible not to be creative. But as much as that might annoy you, it is also very, very true. So I want to talk about, you can see on the picture, this is a session that Sophie led, and Sophie is very creative, and Sophie's in this group somewhere, and you're very welcome to ask Sophie questions. So at Sophie Hester. And she did this session here, which was a Matisse session. So if you're not familiar with Matisse, Matisse is an artist. I'm not that familiar either. It really should be Sophie in this chair talking about Matisse. But as I understand, and this is probably all that we need to know in a creative session, is that Matisse was an amazing artist, and he became very ill and actually bedridden, and he had to stay in his bed, and he was unable to create art until he realized that he could create art by ripping bits of paper, large, massive pieces of paper. And you can see in this middle picture at the top, this is one of his very famous pieces of art. And the group then did the same, and they created pictures by either ripping paper, or you can see in the bottom middle picture, you can see one of our beneficiaries who chose to use scissors. And this is the thing, isn't it, with creativity? We're not being prescriptive about how we create art at all. We're just saying, let's have a go and let's try whichever way sort of suits you. So I just wanted to, before I go on to that slide, I'd quite like to just show you, I've just done a quick Google, just to kind of show you some more of, sort of Matisse's ideas of things that you can create. This one here, that my cursor's going around, you know, it's very simple, isn't it? It's a very simple way of bringing colors together that can be really incredibly effective. And we don't have to be amazing at art to create something really lovely. And the other really key point with creativity is to say it's not about the end result. It's never about the end result. It's about the process. It's about getting into flow and really enjoying being part of the process of creating something. I think, here we go, we've got this as well. This is lovely ripped paper collage. Again, very, very simple. We're just ripping bits of paper and then creating, you know, the moon in the sky. Beautiful, beautiful work, and so simple to do. So that's one idea for you for your Being Creative session. You can have that. Then let's talk about fabric and using fabric in art. So I'm going to go back to my little slideshow here. So you can see on the left hand side, this actually quite an old picture of one of our first groups that we ran in Lostwithiel, probably about 8 or so, 9 maybe years ago. And in this picture, you can see the women in the picture were both incredible seamstresses. So you can see actually that the lady in the forefront of the picture actually used to make all her own clothes all her lifetime, and although was unable now to sew, because as you know, in dementia and particularly Alzheimer's, there's that loss of sort of being able to do anything intricate is difficult, but she was still able to wield a pair of scissors and could cut anything out brilliantly, and I'm far better than I ever could. And so in this session, I think we were creating bean bags. So again, it's creative, but maybe not in the way that you necessarily think it has to be art or it has to be singing. You know, there are other ways that we can be creative. The right-hand picture is a mandala that we created, again, sort of expecting to, if you sort of look at the flower in the middle, we began with the flower as sort of the beginning, the middle, and then sort of went out with various petals and leaves that we'd found, or I'd found in my garden actually. And you can create these mandalas out of literally anything. And I'm going to try, not that way. I'm going to try and show you. Again, I did a bit of a Google on the old mandalas. What's really interesting about mandalas is they're sacred symbols which are used in meditation and prayer. But also clinical studies have shown that they actually boost your immune system. So, you know, not only are you creating art, but you're also doing something awesome for your immune system and for your mental health as well. Mandalas are used a lot, aren't they? You've probably come across the sort of adult colouring books. So here's some ideas here. This is just on Pinterest. So, you know, and this is what I do, is just kind of look around the web, look on Pinterest, get some ideas, think about, you know, things that are really simple, like there's a really sort of, it's so intricate and beautiful, but also very, very simple to do. And what we found with our groups is, if I can find that picture again, what we found with our groups is that, you know, you start in the middle and they just want to carry on, and they work together in a team, because it's got to be right, you know, it has to be you know, and I don't say that often, do I, in working with dementia, it doesn't have to be right. But this was something that they kind of naturally wanted it to match on both sides, and it worked. So there we go. There is the mandalas. And then the other thing that I just wanted to talk about briefly was cooking and baking. You know, very often we don't sort of think about cooking and baking as something that that is creative, but of course it is, isn't it? And many people who tell me they're not creative are amazing bakers. Of course you're creative. If you can bake, you're creative. So baking, obviously that can be really difficult in a group, particularly if your group only runs for 45 minutes to an hour. What are you going to bake in that time? But you can do things like cupcake decorating. You can do, you know, decorating biscuits. You can now get some great sort of decoration, what are they called, tubes of decorating icing, and you can decorate things, and we've had fun doing that. So again, you know, there's lots of different ways that we can be creative without feeling like we have to produce an artwork. And then finally, I just wanted to talk about poetry. Okay, so poetry, wow, how much more creative can we get? And using our words. And, you know, when I first started caring, working as a carer, and I was only about 18, and I was fascinated by the things that people with dementia would say. And I found that I had a notebook in my pocket, and I used to go around with my notebook and I would write down these amazing quotes that people would say, because I think there's something really beautiful in those words. Now, I know that we're working, that was for people sort of very sort of with more severe dementia, and we're working with people with mild to moderate dementia, but you can still find this richness in how we as humans explain things if we can't access the words that we might need. So you know, think about it, think about your vocabulary. If you couldn't find that word or that word or that word, what other word would you use? And it's really wonderful the way the brain chooses these alternative words for us to talk and to create poetry. So what I would do is I'd give a first line of a poetry. So I gave an example earlier of I walked along the ocean shore. I walked along the ocean shore. What comes up for people? What do they want to say next? And it's a bit like you can do it within the group, and each person says a line and you can write it down. There are many ways that you can create poetry in a group. And yeah, and it's something that we're going to be looking even deeper into. We've got an amazing guy, Ben, who's also in the group, Ben Murdoch, and you may want to ask Ben some questions because he is really exploring songwriting of people living with dementia, and we're very excited to sort of be starting to explore that as an idea. So here you go. Here's some ideas for the creativity session, and I'm sure there's one of those that you can pick out and use. The other thing that I just wanted to mention was the objectives for that session. And the objectives, again, if I share my screen, so we have all of this marvelousness at Memory Matters. So if we look down to the Being Creative session, the objectives are to promote creative expression and stimulate imagination. Well, that's it, isn't it? How do we do that? And in all of those examples that I've given you, I believe that we're doing it. We're promoting creative expression and stimulating imagination. So there we go. On another note, we have training going on this week, which I'm very excited about because I haven't done this for a while and I love doing a full day's training. It's on Zoom, which is brilliant because that means that you can access it from absolutely anywhere that you are in the world, even Australia, but you'll have to be up in the middle of the night. But it's worth it, I'm telling you, it's going to be amazing. So we are going to be exploring CST. We're going to be learning every single thing that there is to know about it. And we'll be working in groups. I'll be putting you in Zoom rooms. I know that lots of you have signed up already, but we do have spaces. So please jump on. It's going to be amazing. I'm really looking forward to it. We'll have lots of breaks. So don't worry if you're thinking, oh, crikey, can I do a whole day of Zoom? You really can. And we've done a few of them now, and they've been really, really successful. You get a workbook as well that you can download and work on. You get a certificate at the end of it. Who doesn't want that? So if you're interested, pop a whatnot in the doodah in the comments, and Shania will get back to you and get you booked on because I'd love to see you. Be really great. And yeah, that's it in a nutshell. So great to see you. See you soon. Still waving. Don't know if I'm still live. Never know when it's over. No, still going. I reckon I'm still talking to myself here. Everybody's laughing. Bye. 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 Bye.